Julian Crane hadn't cried since the day she left, not when the board voted him out of his own app startup, not when Forbes ran a piece calling him emotionally volatile but promising, and certainly not when Camille texted him the wedding invite with a smiley face and no signature. He sat in his penthouse, the invitation unopened on the counter for today's Know It was white. Simple. Expensive. Like her. Are you going? His assistant, Talia, asked, standing with one foot still in the elevator. He didn't look up. Would it be more pathetic to go or not to go? Talia's silence said, both. Should I RSVP no? She asked carefully. He finally looked at her. RSVP yes. +1. She blinked. You have a +1. Julian took a long sip of his scotch and smiled without warmth. Not yet. Across town, Calla Monroe pressed superglue into the chipped lip of a coffee mug. The scent stung her nose. The #1 dad mug wasn't hers. It belonged to Bill, the dishwasher who hadn't taken a day off in 17 years. He dropped it that morning and pretended not to care. But she saw the way he looked at it. Behind her, the kitchen bell dinged again. Order up. Table 6. Calla. She rolled her eyes. Tell them their pancakes are coming faster than their divorces. Laughter from the cook. Calla wiped her hands on her apron, grabbed the plates, and walked into the greasy haze of Marlene's diner. A 24-hour joint that smelled like bacon and Old Hope. She didn't hate her life. It was just full. Too full. Her brother needed help with homework. Her rent was 2 weeks late. And her feet hurt in ways no one warned her about at 19. Then the door jingled, and in walked a man in a coat that cost more than her car. Julian Crane looked entirely out of place. His jawline looked sculpted. His eyes? Sharp. Cold. Like a storm no one wanted to name. He wore money like a second skin, but there was something else. Something. Frayed. Calla walked over, pen behind her ear. Booth or pity party? He blinked, then laughed. It caught him off guard. Booth. She pointed to the back. That one doesn't have gum under it. The others can't say the same. He slid in, grateful for the isolation. She handed him a menu. No need, he said. Just coffee. Black. She poured it without asking. Rough night? He hesitated. Rough month. She leaned an elbow on the booth. Wanna talk about it? He looked up, startled. Are you always this direct? She smiled. Only when I'm tired and the tip looks promising. They didn't talk much after that. She refilled his coffee when it dropped below half. He didn't scroll his phone. Just watched the rain streak down the window like he was memorizing each drop. By the time her shift ended, the diner was mostly empty. You're still here, she said, grabbing her coat. He looked up. You're still standing. Takes practice. He tilted his head. You're not like most people, she shrugged. You mean I talk back? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I meant, you see things. You pay attention. She paused, one arm in her coat. Yeah, well, seeing people doesn't pay the rent. A silence stretched between them. Not awkward, just exposed. Then he said, I need a favor. 10 minutes later, they sat in his idling car. It smelled like leather and regret. You want me to what? She asked. Come with me. To a wedding. This Saturday. She blinked. Who are you? He extended a hand. Julian Crane. Should I know that name? Not unless you read about the idiot who got dumped and then invested in AI. Dog collars. She snorted. Wow. Humble and rich. Dangerous combo. I'll pay you. Enough to cover whatever it is you need covered. She hesitated. Why me? He turned toward her, and for a second, the storm broke. His voice softened. Because you're the first person I've met in a long time who didn't look at me like I owed them something. You didn't flinch when I walked in. You didn't care. She narrowed her eyes. And you want me to pretend I'm your girlfriend? No, he said. Just come. Be yourself. That's the part that'll shock them. She looked out the window. Thought about her brother's school fees, about the muffler on her car that wouldn't last another week, and about this man sitting beside her who seemed more lost than arrogant. Fine, she said finally, but I picked the dress, and I'm not doing any fake kisses. He nodded. Deal. Then she opened the door and stepped into the rain. He rolled down the window just before she closed it. What's your name? He called out. She looked back, hair plastered to her cheek. Calla. Like the lily. And then she was gone. The ballroom looked like something out of a fairy tale if the fairy tale had been ghost-ridden by someone trying too hard to forget their past. Crystal chandeliers dripped light from above. Gold-trimmed curtains framed floor-to-ceiling windows. Tables glittered with floral centerpieces big enough to house small families of birds. Everything smelled like roses and old money. Calla stepped out of the car, high heels wobbling slightly as she adjusted the neckline of her borrowed gown. It was emerald, off-shoulder, fit her like it had been waiting its whole life to be worn by someone underestimated. Julian stepped beside her, unbothered in a perfectly tailored tux. He looked every bit the billionaire he was trying not to be. She leaned over and whispered, I feel like I'm walking into the lion's den. Julian didn't look at her. Good. Lions don't whisper. The moment they walked in, the room turned. Gasps weren't audible, but you could feel them. The clink of a dropped fork. A too loud cough. The pianist missing a note. Meanwhile, Calla returned to the diner. Bill handed her a coffee. You okay? She nodded. I'm fine. He didn't believe her. Neither did she. Customers whispered. Phones buzzed. Everyone had an opinion. No one knew the story, except one person, and he hadn't called. Milo came home from school with a folded piece of paper. I drew this today, he said. Placing it in front of her, Calla unfolded it. A picture of Julian, her, a piano, he'd written. Thank you for making my sister smile. She covered her mouth, closed her eyes, and cried. Julian sat in the driver's seat of his car, parked outside the diner. He didn't get out, not yet. He watched her through the window. She looked tired, strong, still showing up, even with the weight on her shoulders. He thought of Camille, his mother, the press. Then he thought of Calla playing barefoot at his estate, laughing over burned garlic, telling him he wasn't broken, and finally he stepped out. The bell above the door jingled. Calla turned. Her heart slammed. Julian stood there. No suit, no mask, just him. He approached slowly. You look like you haven't slept. She raised an eyebrow. Pot, meet kettle. A pause. Then she said, Why are you here? He took a breath. Because I was wrong. He sat at her booth. Same one as their first night. You were right. I pushed you away. Not because I believed the headline, but because I believed I didn't deserve you. Her eyes filled. You really think I'd hurt you like that? He shook his head. No, I think I was looking for a reason to run. Because loving you feels like too much, too good, a beat. Then he added, but I'd rather be terrified with you than empty without you. She stared at him. You said this wasn't real. He leaned forward. I was scared. Are you still? He nodded. Yes. Then why come back? He smiled. Because the fear is worth it. If it means I get to fight for you, outside. The rain began again. Soft this time. Calla reached into her apron and pulled out the drawing from Milo. She slid it across the table. Julian looked down, laughed softly. I'm very handsome in crayon. He likes you, she said. So do I. His eyes locked on hers. Then let's stop pretending we don't belong together. Calla hesitated, then finally nodded. 3 months later, the room was full of music, not the kind from speakers or DJs, the kind played by fingers that knew the cost of every note. Calla sat at a grand piano in the center of a glass-walled room, playing her heart, her recital, her future. Juilliard had accepted her on scholarship. Someone anonymously had paid her fees in full, but she knew, she'd known the moment she found the note inside the piano bench. For the woman who reminded me I still have a heart. Julian sat in the back, wearing a dark suit and a smile that reached places inside him he didn't know existed. He hadn't told her he'd be there, didn't need to. She saw him the moment she lifted her head. From the final chord, their eyes met. He mouthed, "You were brilliant," and in that moment, she finally believed she was, that night, under low lights and a sky full of stars. Julian knelt in the middle of her tiny living room. He didn't have a diamond the size of a planet, just a simple ring. "Silver, quiet, marry me," he said, voice low. "Not because you fixed me, but because you saw me and stayed." Calla blinked back tears. "Even when you were stubborn and scared?" He smiled. "Especially then." She didn't say yes. She just tackled him with a kiss, which said everything. The wedding wasn't flashy, but it was full, not of celebrities or press, but of real people. Milo walked her down the aisle in a too-big suit. He cried halfway through, and so did half the room. Julian stood waiting. Not like a man showing off a prize, but like a man who'd spent his whole life waiting for this exact moment. When Calla entered, heads turned again, just like they had at Camille's wedding, only this time she wasn't pretending. She wasn't a scandal. She was his, and he was hers. Camille was there too. Distant, polite, civil, but not a threat anymore. Not even a shadow, just a page. Julian had turned permanently during the vows. Calla took a shaky breath. "I didn't believe in fairy tales," she said, "but I believed in fighting for joy, for quiet, for real things. And somehow, that led me to you." Julian wiped a tear. "I used to think being seen was dangerous. You made it feel safe." They exchanged rings, and when they kissed, the whole room rose to its feet. Milo whooped. Even Bill from the diner dabbed his eyes with a napkin. Later that night, at the reception, Julian pulled her aside. "I have something for you," he said, handing her a small envelope. She opened it. Inside, a contract, a check, and a note. "Your own music studio, paid in full. Do with it what you want, but never stop playing." Her breath caught. "You gave me a life," he whispered. "Let me give you space to live it." She pulled him into a kiss, and in that moment, for the first time in her life, Calla felt like she had everything. Not the mansion, not the money, but a man who listened, who stayed, who let her be messy and magic and real. She smiled against his lips. "You know this is just the beginning, right?" He nodded. "God, I hope so." A year later, another wedding, not theirs. "This is different." "Why?" He stepped closer. "Because this matters." After dinner, they sat outside, sharing a blanket and a bottle of wine. Calla rested her head on his shoulder. The stars stretched above them, sharp, brilliant, endless. "I forgot what quiet like this feels like," she whispered. Julian didn't respond, but he wrapped the blanket tighter around her shoulders. They talked, really talked, about her mom's letters that never came, about his father's silence in his final years, about how loneliness doesn't always feel like pain sometimes, it just feels normal. Julian watched her, the way her lips moved when she thought hard, the way she laughed with her whole face. "You look at me like I'm a poem," she said quietly. "You are," he replied. "A complicated one." She smiled. "Do you like complicated?" "I'm starting to." They almost kissed that night. Julian leaned in. She didn't pull away, but just before their lips met, thunder cracked in the distance, and she laughed. "You sure the universe is ready for this?" He rested his forehead against hers. "I don't care." But they didn't kiss. Not yet, because something about the waiting made it feel more real. The next morning, Calla played the piano again. This time, not a sad song. Something lighter, free. Julian came downstairs in silence, leaned against the doorway and listened. When she finished, he clapped softly. She turned, cheeks pink. "You keep watching me like that, because you don't know how beautiful you are when you stop. Holding your breath." She looked at him, really looked. I think I'm starting to remember who I was, she said. He stepped forward. I think I've never met someone more whole. Later, he helped her record a video audition for a scholarship she never dared to apply for. She stumbled on the second take. He didn't laugh, just smiled and said, again. The third take was magic. She didn't even need to watch it to know. That night, Julian read a bedtime story to Milo over video call. Calla stood off camera, watching. He did the voices. Milo giggled. Something inside her shifted. She wasn't falling anymore. She had already fallen. The headline hit the news at 7:03 a.m. Billionaire's broken heart. Julian Crane's new flame, a gold-digging waitress insider claims. She's after his inheritance. A photo accompanied it, grainy but unmistakable. Calla at the estate, barefoot, laughing, holding a mug. Julian in the background, smiling like he hadn't in years. The worst part, the quote, she's playing him. Everyone knows it. Anonymous source close to the family. Julian read the article twice, then 3 more times. His stomach turned. He tossed his phone across the kitchen island. His mother stood in the doorway, arms crossed. I warned you, she said. She's beneath you. He glared. Did you leak this? She arched a brow. Why would I? I have nothing to gain from your humiliation. His jaw tensed. She sighed. You let your guard down, Julian. That's on you. Calla found out from a customer. The diner was half full when someone slid a phone across the counter. You're famous, they said. Calla froze, saw the headline. The photo. The comment thread. Words like, scam artist, waitress turned witch, trap queen. She didn't finish her shift, didn't speak, just walked out. She was already waiting on Julian's doorstep when he arrived. The look in his eyes? Not relief, not even concern, just cold. I didn't tell anyone, she said before he could speak. Did you? He asked, voice low. Because someone did. I wouldn't. Funny, he said. You were the only one here. Calla stepped back. You think I sold you out? Julian didn't answer. That was worse. Wow, she said, voice breaking. So this was always conditional, huh? I trusted you, he said. No, she snapped. You hired me, then used me, then maybe felt something. But the second it looked bad, you pulled the plug. I'm not pulling anything, he muttered. Yes, you are. She cried. You're pushing me away before I can leave. That's what you always do, isn't it? Julian's eyes flashed. And you? You think a piano and a few soft words erases reality? Calla flinched. Silence fell. She turned. I loved you. The words fell from her lips like a mistake she couldn't take back. Julian's breath caught. She kept walking, didn't look back. That night, she sat at her old upright piano, hands still, couldn't play, didn't want to. Milo peeked into the room. Did he hurt you? He asked. No, she said. I hurt myself. I let myself think someone like him could want someone like me. Milo frowned. You're the best person I know. She pulled him close, but the ache stayed. Julian sat in his car outside the estate, alone. Camille had called twice. He didn't answer. His mother left a note. This is the world we live in, Julian. Choose carefully. He deleted it, then opened the voicemail from Calla she'd left a week earlier, the one he hadn't listened to. Her voice, soft and nervous. I just wanted to say, I'm scared, but I'm trying. And if you are too, then maybe we could try together. He played it again and again until the sun came up. 2 days passed. Neither called. Julian sat in his office, staring at a contract worth $80 million. He couldn't sign it, not because the deal was bad, because nothing mattered. Not without her. He opened his laptop, watched the footage of Calla's Juilliard audition again, the one they'd recorded in the living room. Her hands trembling, her voice strong. She played like someone who had something to prove, not to the school.to herself. You ever think about what you'd do if you didn't have to survive all the time? Julian asked. Calla exhaled. I'd play piano again. He blinked. You play? She nodded. Used to. Before life got complicated. He leaned closer. I want to hear. She shook her head. It's been years. Still, he said, almost whispering. Let me listen. Her eyes met his. Why? Because when you speak, he said, I finally feel like someone's listening to me. They didn't kiss. Not yet, but when she fell asleep on the couch beside him, her head on his shoulder, Julian didn't move. Not for hours, not even when his phone buzzed with a message from Camille. Saw your new girl. Cute. Real or for show? He didn't reply. He just looked down at Calla, her breath steady, her presence warm, and whispered, She's realer than you ever were. The piano was covered in dust, tucked in the far corner of the Langley Estate's east parlor. It stood like a forgotten monument. Grand, beautiful, silent. Calla's fingers hovered above the keys. Her breath caught. She didn't touch it. Not yet. Julian leaned against the doorway. You found it. She turned. It's beautiful. It hasn't been played in years, Calla nodded. That makes two of us. Later that evening, she sat down. The silence stretched long. The kind of silence that dared you to break it, and then she played, soft at first, deliberate. Her hands trembled on the first few notes. Like old ghosts haunted her fingertips, but the melody came, not polished, not perfect, but real. Julian watched, unmoving. The song was unfamiliar, and yet it pulled something from his chest like a thread unraveling. When she finished, she didn't look at him. Juilliard, she said quietly. I got in. At 16, Julian blinked. You're kidding? She shook her head. Didn't matter. My mom left that year. Dad spiraled. I had a 10-year-old brother and no income. Dreams don't pay for groceries. He moved closer, kneeling beside the bench. That's what you gave up? He asked, stunned. Calla forced a smile. Life's about priorities. Milo needed a mom, not Chopin. Julian's jaw clenched. You deserved both. Her voice was almost a whisper. Yeah, but what you deserve and what you get are two different stories. Silence again. Not heavy, not awkward, just shared. Julian sat on the floor beside her, staring at the keys. My father died when I was 15, he said. Camille was my lifeline. She used to sneak into my room, bring me books, play records on low volume so I'd fall asleep. I thought she'd saved me. Calla turned toward him. She told me once, he continued, that I felt too much. That it made me weak in rooms that require power. Calla's eyes flashed. She was wrong, he nodded. But I believed her. Until you. The shift was subtle, but undeniable. From strangers to something else. Not lovers. Not yet. But not pretending anymore either. They were pieces of each other's past they didn't know they needed. Calla wandered the house alone that night. Old portraits. Velvet walls. The quiet hum of history. In one room, she found a stack of photo albums. Camille and Julian, frozen in gold-trimmed happiness. One picture stopped her. Camille, smiling with Julian in front of that same piano. A birthday party. A cake in the shape of a music note. Calla ran a finger over the image. The ache in her chest came quick, sharp. She wasn't part of this world. Not then. Not now. The next morning, Julian noticed the shift. You okay? He asked over coffee. She nodded. Too fast. He watched her closely. Did I do something? No, she said. You didn't do anything wrong, which was true, but it didn't stop the wrongness she felt pressing in. Like no matter how well they fit in the quiet, they'd never fit in the light. Later, Calla called Milo. Do you think, she asked carefully, people like us belong in places like this? Milo thought for a moment. Did the piano sound worse because of where you played it? Calla swallowed. No, then yeah, he said. We belong wherever we bring something good. That night, Julian found her outside, barefoot in the grass. You disappeared on me, he said. I was thinking, dangerous habit. She turned toward him. You don't scare me, Julian. He stepped closer. You should. I'm not afraid of broken things, she whispered. He paused. Neither of them moved. Then he said, You're not broken, Calla. She looked at him, and for the first time, believed it. The rain started slow, just a whisper on the roof. Calla watched from the kitchen window. Holding a chipped mug of chamomile tea, Julian stood behind her. Still groggy from sleep, barefoot and quiet, she handed him the mug. Try this. He sipped, winced. Tastes like boiled regret. She snorted. You're impossible. You're stubborn. Only when I'm right. He raised an eyebrow. So, always? She grinned. Takes one to know one. Later that morning, Julian stood in the driveway beside his vintage convertible. Get in, he said, tossing her a key. Calla blinked. You're letting me drive that? He shrugged. We all have to live dangerously. Define dangerously, she said, sliding behind the wheel. He buckled in with dramatic flair. I'm entrusting my life to a woman who thinks power steering is a myth. She peeled out of the driveway too fast. He shouted. She laughed, and for once, it felt easy. They stopped at a roadside market. Bought peaches, honey, rosemary. Back at the estate, they cooked dinner together, or tried to. Julian burned the garlic. Calla dropped a lemon into the sink. Laughter bounced off the kitchen walls like music. She leaned against the counter, wiping her hands on a towel. You ever cook for anyone before? He nodded. Once. For Camille. Burned it then too. Her smile faltered. He noticed. Of course. Calla immediately regretted it. I didn't mean. It's fine, he said, already turning. Good night, Calla. She watched him walk away, back into his car. Back into his guarded world. She didn't sleep well that night. The next morning, her brother noticed. You look like someone erased your eyebrows in your sleep, Milo said, munching cereal. Calla smirked weakly. Thanks, bud. Boosting the confidence as always. He squinted. Did you see that guy again? The rich one? She froze with her spoon halfway to her mouth. No. Why? You smiled more after him, Milo said. Like, real smiling. Not the tired kind. She looked away. It was just one night, Milo. Still, he said. He saw you. Calla blinked. Sometimes 10-year-olds saw things adults couldn't. Julian spent the day pretending to be busy. He sat in meetings, nodded at presentations, signed contracts. But none of it stuck. Camille's words echoed in his mind. Nathan's smug smile, but louder than all of them was Calla's voice at the microphone. You ever meet someone who lets you be exactly who you are? He hadn't. Not really. Until his assistant buzzed in. Sir, Camille's office just called. She wants to meet for coffee. Julian stared at the blinking light on his phone. Book it, he said. Calla dropped the gown at the dry cleaners like she promised, paid the $14 fee with her last $20. Walked home wondering why she suddenly felt poorer than she had in years. Not in money. In silence. She'd never been anyone's date to anything before, and she wasn't sure she wanted to be again unless it was for real. The next day, she walked into the diner early. Bill was washing mugs in the back. Music played low from the radio. She grabbed her apron, tied it, and froze. Julian was sitting at her booth. Again, only this time, there was no tux. No storm in his eyes. Just quiet. I owe you an apology, he said. Calla didn't move. For what? For treating you like a role to be cast, he said. You weren't my date. You were. The moment I remembered what honesty felt like, she folded her arms. And Camille? Did she enjoy the show? She thinks I've lost my mind, he said. Calla cracked a smile. Have you? She sat across from him, not out of forgiveness, but curiosity. You know this can't be a thing, she said. He nodded. I know. Different worlds, Julian. I don't want the old world. She looked at him then. And for the first time, his walls were down, but still she got up. I have orders to run, she said. You want coffee? He nodded. Black. She smiled softly. Of course. and walked away. The invitation came in the form of a black car. Again, Calla blinked as it pulled up outside the diner. The driver stepped out. "Miss Monroe, Mr. Crane requests your company at the Langley estate." She wiped her hands on her apron. "Excuse me? His mother wishes to meet you," the driver said with a look that suggested she didn't really wish anything. "She believes you two are serious." Calla's mouth parted. "What?" "And she's concerned about inheritance implications." Calla laughed. "You mean she thinks I'm after his money?" The driver didn't blink. "She is." Unconvinced, an hour later, Calla stood on the marble steps of Julian's family estate. Trying to remember the last time she'd felt this out of place, Julian met her at the door. Hands in his pockets. "I didn't want this," he said. "She's intrusive, and you brought me here?" Calla hissed. "To play house? She thinks we're together. If I don't play along, she'll leak stories." Calla crossed her arms. "So lie to your mother or risk the media. Either way, I'm a pawn again." "I'll double the payment," he said. She glared. "Try again," he sighed. "Then I'll cook dinner." Dinner was a disaster. Julian burned the salmon. Calla used salt instead of sugar in the vinaigrette. The fire alarm went off. They ended up eating cereal at the kitchen island, laughing through bites of soggy granola. "I haven't laughed like this in a while," Julian admitted. Calla eyed him. "You sure this isn't how billionaires flirt?" "I wouldn't know," he replied. "I've only ever dated women who thought I came with a return policy." She raised an eyebrow. "And now?" He looked at her. "Now I'm hoping I don't break something real." They didn't sleep in the same room, but proximity made space feel small. The house was silent at night, the kind of silence that held its breath. Calla wandered into the library the next morning and found him asleep on the couch. A book open across his chest. She didn't wake him, but she watched, just for a moment. Later, they sat on the back porch drinking coffee. Calla sipped hers slowly. "So what's the story with your mom?" Julian chuckled. "CEO of 3 nonprofits. Queen of perception. Thinks therapy is a luxury for the poor. She doesn't seem like the nurturing type." "She's not," he said. "She's strategic." Calla looked at him. "And you?" "I learned to feel nothing. Until you." She almost dropped her mug. He didn't take it back. The third day brought rain. Neither left the house. Calla found an old vinyl player in a closet. They played records, danced awkwardly in socks, and made pancakes at 3 p.m. She caught him watching her again this time, without hiding it. "What?" she asked. "You make silence feel like music," he said, and she didn't have a comeback. That night, they sat on the floor with a bottle of wine. Calla kept her chin up. Smiled like she knew exactly what fork to use, even though she didn't plan to eat. Camille was already watching, from across the room, in a dress so white it could blind. Her eyes were locked on Julian. Her smile? Frozen, perfect, vicious. Calla leaned in. "She's porcelain." Julian's lips twitched. Porcelain cracks. Introductions were made. Fake smiles exchanged. Calla played the part, polite, poised, and quietly amused. She didn't cling to Julian's arm like some prop. She stood beside him like she chose to. Some woman in a backless gown asked her what hedge fund her family ran. Calla replied, "Oh, we manage assets. Eggs, bacon, that sort of thing." Julian nearly choked on his champagne. By the time the speeches started, Calla had charmed 3 waiters, insulted 2 senators, and caught Julian staring more than once, but it was the speech from Nathan, Camille's new groom, that silenced the entire room. "We all know love can be tricky," Nathan began. He was tall, smug, polished. The kind of man who kissed with his eyes open. Julian gripped the edge of his glass tighter. Nathan's speech rambled until it wasn't rambling anymore. "And sometimes we mistake obsession for love. Sometimes we love people who only love themselves, or worse, their image. But then life gives you someone better. Someone real. That's what this wedding is about. leaving the fiction behind. The words hung in the air like smoke. Camille shifted. Julian's jaw ticked. Calla looked between them, then stood, walked forward, and took the mic. The room froze. "Hi," she said softly. "Sorry to interrupt. I'm Calla. I don't usually do speeches. I usually clean up after them." Some laughed, uncomfortably. "I just wanted to say, sometimes people fall apart. Sometimes they break things. But the ones worth loving, they're the ones who admit they're still learning. The ones who don't need to win every time." Julian stared, heart thudding. She continued, "And if you ever meet someone who lets you be exactly who you are, even in a room full of people who think you shouldn't be, hold on to them. That's rare. That's real." She looked straight at Camille, smiled, kindly, not cruel. "Anyway, congratulations to the happy couple," and walked back to her seat. Silence. Then applause.it started somewhere near the back, then grew. Awkward. Confused. Honest. Julian didn't move, just looked at her. "What was that?" he asked, voice low. Calla sipped her champagne. "Damage control." "No," he said. "It was something else." She tilted her head. "You okay?" He didn't answer, because the thing in his chest, the one he thought had died, was beating again, and he didn't know what scared him more, that it was alive, or that she was the reason. That was something. Julian said once they were back in the car, driving through the city that now looked like a blur of lights and judgment. Calla stared out the window, the tension crawling between them like static. "If by something you mean I made your ex hate you more, then yeah. We crushed it," she replied, her voice to light, to flippant. Julian didn't answer. He just loosened his tie. The silence wasn't comfortable this time. It was loaded, buzzing, full of questions neither of them knew how to ask. "Why did you do it?" he asked finally. She turned to him. "The speech?" He nodded. Calla shrugged. "Didn't like what he said. Figured someone should say the truth, but you don't know me." She looked at him then. Really looked. "No," she said. "But I saw the way you looked at her. And it wasn't hate." He turned his head, eyes dark. "She didn't just leave you, did she?" He looked out the opposite window. "She didn't just leave. She erased me." They arrived at her building, a narrow walk-up with chipped paint and flickering hallway lights. Julian followed her to the door, lingering like he didn't want to be alone. Calla hesitated, hand on the doorknob. "Look, I'm sorry if I overstepped back there," she said. "You didn't," he replied too fast. She forced a smile. "I'll leave the dress at the dry cleaner tomorrow. You can have someone pick it up." He frowned. "Is that it? What else would there be?" she asked, trying not to sound like she cared. "I don't know," he said, softer now. "A thank you, maybe?" She tilted her head. "You paid me, remember?" The words hit harder than she meant them to. Julian took a step back, jaw tight. "Right." Calla, now a rising musician, plays at a friend's ceremony. Julian stands in the back, holding Milo's hand. When Calla begins to play, the entire room quiets. Her melody is soft, strong, a beautiful echo of the song she once played at Julian's estate the day he realized he could feel again. He closes his eyes, lets it wash over him. The past doesn't haunt him anymore, because she rewrote it, note by note. Love didn't save them, but it let them save themselves together. Have you ever been seen in a way that changed everything? When did someone surprise you by staying? Tell us in the comments. Your story might be someone else's hope. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to subscribe for more videos like this.